we have seen how to refer to the what declarations dynamically. Okay, anyone can, have done this exercise? Hmm? Yes, online you are able to do this item list box. Anyone tried this? Try Nakara. Okay, so let us quickly do this. Right. So what is the requirement here? This we require only one view. This view requires what? One item list box, one push button, and what? One table. So before we go to the development process, first of all, we have to visualize the layout. We have to visualize the layout, and we have to check what is the context we require. So if you take this item list box, what we are displaying here? Multiple values. So multiple values means what? We require what? Internal table. Nothing but what? We require a node whose cardinality is what? 0 to n or what? 1 to n. And here also table we require what? Multiple record. So we have to go for a node with cardinality what? 0 to n or what? 1 to n. So first of all, let me design a component. Right, so Webdynpro component, I'll give the component name. Yes, 7. I'll go for 8. Right, so I'll give the description. Item list box. Window name, let me give it as what? Underscore window. View name, I'll give it as something what? V1. Done. So I'll save it in the local object. So we are creating what? One default view. We are creating one default view. Right, one default view got created. Now if you go to the view v1, before designing the layout, what you have to do? We have to keep the context ready. So just now we have visualized the layout and we have decided to create what? Two context nodes with the cardinality as what? 0 to n. Okay, so in SAP all the country keys are available in which table? All the country keys are in which table? T005. So if I go to S11, we have a standard table T005 which stores what? All the country keys. Let me open that. Yeah, T005 is the table which stores what? All the country keys. What is the field in this? Land one is a field which stores what? Country key. Okay, so land one is a field, data element is also land one, and the table is what? T005. So let me create the context now. Right, so I'll go to the view context. I'll right click on the context, create node. I'll give the node name as T005 underscore what? Node. I'll not refer to any dictionary structure. I can refer to T005, but in the T005, I require only one field. Na? So just because of one field unnecessary, I should not refer to what? 72 fields. That's the reason I'll not refer to any dictionary structure, but I'll create a blank node with cardinality as what? 0 to n, and just I'll say continue. So a blank node is created. Under this blank node, okay, I'll right click on this node and I'll say create what? Attribute. I'll give the attribute name as what? Land one. Okay, type. Again, I'll give it as what? Land one. Nothing but what? Data element. I'm referring to the data element what? Land one. The name of the attribute is also what? land1 type. If you want, you can give it as land1, or you simply say what, t005 hyphen what land1, anything is fine. Understood? Attribute name is land1, type t005 from land1, continue. Done. So a node is created with what? One attribute. Similarly, let me create one more node which should contain how many column, how many attributes? Three attributes. So if you go to K11 table, so here only, let me collect the data elements. I don't want to refer to unnecessarily to the entire structure. So let me collect the data elements here for K11 fields. Okay, let me create the node first. Right click on the root context, create what? Node. I'll give the node name as what? K11 underscore node. I'll not refer to any dictionary structure. Cardinality is 0 to n. Again, I create the blank node. Under this node, I'll create some three attributes like customer number, name one, and what? ORT01. What is the data elements? Kunnar, name one underscore GP, and ORT1 underscore what? GP. So right click on the KNA1 node, create what? Attribute. I'll give the attribute name. I can give you F1, F2 kind of thing also. Okay. Anything is fine. So I'll go for same names, Kunnar type. What is the data element? Kunnar. The data element is what? Kunnar. Done. Then I click on the node again, create attribute. I'll give the name as something, name one. What is the data element? Name one underscore GP. Then right click on the node, create what? Attribute. I'll give the name as what? ORT01. Type what? ORT01 underscore what? Underscore what? GP. Done. Understood? So I created a node what? Three attributes. Done, done, done. Okay, let me save it. Context is ready now. Then once the context is ready, we need to design what? The layout. Okay, I hope it's clear. Okay. So why I took only one field here? Because I have to show only one field data, and yeah, here I have to show only what? Land one. That's the reason I took only what? One attribute. Here I have to show what? Three fields. That's the reason I took what? Three attributes here. Let me design the view layout. So I'll go to the view layout as usual. Under what? Root element container. I'll right click on the root element container, insert element. I'll give it as something ID. I'll give it as what? Something list box. What is the type here? Yes, item list box. Type is what? Item list box. Done. So I don't know at this stage what are the properties I have to set. So what I'll do, when I try to do syntax check, good, what is the error I got? Property data source of the element list box must be found. See, what I'm trying to tell here is, we'll have hundreds of elements in Webdynpro. You cannot remember all the properties, I cannot remember all the properties. Okay, so just place that element on the layout, and when you do the syntax check, it will show what? Error. So property data source of element list box must be bound. So what I'll do, this is my list box. I'll go to the properties of this item list box. What is one of the property which is mandated? Chips data source. Now again, I don't know whether I have to bind this property with a node, or I don't know whether I have to bind it with a attribute, or I don't know whether I have to bind it with the attribute of a node. I repeat, there are some properties which should be bounded only to what? Node, or only to what? Attributes, or only to attributes of a node. So I don't know again. So what I'll do? Okay, I'll do one thing. Already we are having what? Two nodes. Under each node I am also having what attributes. I'll do one thing, for just for your understanding. I'll right click on the root context. I'll create one individual attribute also. Type what? String. So wantedly I created this attribute. I may not require this, but wantedly I created just to check with what I can bound this. So I'll go to what? List box. What is the property? Yes, data source property. When I try to do the context binding here, what is the message tooltip I am getting there? obligatory binding is what? Missing. So I'll click on this. Done. Good. What is highlighted? What is highlighted? Only nodes are highlighted. Individual attribute is not highlighted, or attribute of a node is also not highlighted. Only nodes are highlighted. So what is the meaning? I can bind this data source property only with what? Nodes. Online, is it clear to everyone? So to understand to what you have to bind property, this is the way you have to understand. Okay, so I'll go for what? T005 underscore what? Node. Okay, I'll go for T005 underscore node. Done. Right. Okay, that it is binded. Let me do syntax check again. When I do syntax check, what is the error? What is the warning kind of thing I got? Tooltip or label is not set for the element what? List box. They are recommending to provide the label for what? List box, or you have to provide what? Tooltip itself. Do you have tooltip property for the list box? Scroll down. Yes, we have what? Tooltip. Either I can set the tooltip or I can set what label. So let me set the tooltip here. Select what? Country case. So I'm just giving the tooltip. When I do syntax check, I don't have any errors. Done. So I am able to set the data source property for what? List box, and I have binded what? With a node. Now in the list box, what we have to show? What you have to show? List of what? Country keys. So what is the attribute which stores that list of country keys in the context? Yes, land one only. Na? We are able to set the data source property only with what? Node. But actually, what is the attribute which holds the land one? This only. Na? So what I have to do is here in the list box itself. In the list box itself, when I do syntax check, I don't have any errors. But still, if you scroll down list box, you can see there's a property here called as what? What? Text property. Text property. I'll just click on this. Yeah, what is highlighted here? Node is disabled. I have to bind with what? What? str. What is this? Individual attribute. Or if you don't want to bind with this, what is the other one? Yes, I'll bind with what? Land one. So I have binded with what? V1 dot node dot what? Attribute. Because that is the attribute which holds the list of what? Country keys. So what is the two? See, that's what. After doing the binding only, you can observe here. What I got here? Yes, V1 dot T005 underscore node underscore what? What? Land one. Am I clear? So there are two important properties for what? List works. What are they? One is data source property, another is what? Text property. Okay, done, save it, check it. Okay, so other things I'll do it later on. Now what I'll do, I'll go to what? Window level. At the window level, my view is what? Embedded by default, done. Let me create the application also. Right click on the component, create the Webdynpro application. I'll give the application name as underscore app. I'll give the description as app8. Let me save it. Done. URL gets generated. Let me activate the component. So let us do it part by part. Okay. I click on the component and say what? Activate. Done. It's activated. Let me run the application once. Right click on the application and say test. What happened? Good. So what happened? I got the what? Blank list box. I got the blank list box. Done. Now let us quickly design that button and what? Table. So first let me design the button. Right, I'll go to layout as part of root element container. What? Insert element. I'll give the ID as B1. Type as what? Button. For the button, what are the important properties? Text. I'll give the text as something. Get what? Get customers. So I got it. Then it is disabled as of now. We have to provide action for which event? On action event. So I'll just say, I'll give the action name as what? Get customers. I'll give a description. Get customers for what? Selected country key. So I'm just giving the action name is what? Get customers. Done. Let me save it. Check it. Done. Is it clear? Let me activate this also. Now I require a table also now. I require a table. So again I'll choose what? Root element content. I'll go to what? Code wizard. What do you have to create? Table. Context. You have to bind with what? Node only na. What is highlighted here? K1 node. Okay, it has got three attributes. For all the three attributes, it will propose a table column. Continue. Done. So I got it. Table I got it. For the table, if you want to give any header, you give it. Understood? So table header is there. I'll give the text here. Where is the text here? Text, what is this? Something. Customers. Okay, let me save it. Check for the syntax. Activate this. Done. Let me run the application now. Done. We got it. Okay, everything is fine. What is the next requirement now? I have to default what? The country keys inside this particular list box. So do I require, okay, so if you want to default anything, where do we write the logic? In the view level. In what method? Already we know this. WD do init. If you want to do any default activities, that business logic has to be implemented inside a method called as WD do init. So let me double click on WD do init. Yeah, let us write the logic. Yeah, what is the logic out right now? What is the, from which table you have to get the country keys? T what? 005. How many country keys are there here? If you go to the table contents, I'm having what? 235 country keys. Done. Okay, so I have to get the country keys from this table and then display it in the what list box. Yeah. So can anyone tell me how do I proceed? Or before that, do I require any global declarations? Think. Do I require any global declarations? Do I require any global declarations? Online, do I require any global declarations? See, simple. What is the first requirement here? I have to default what? Country key. So what you will do, you will declare one internal table, you will get the data into that and you will bind with this particular list box. Binding with this list box is nothing but you have to set the data to which node? T005 underscore node. Done. Then when I click on the button, what I have to do? When I click on the button, what I have to do? I have to identify what? Multiple selected country keys. In order to identify the multiple selected country keys, first of all, you have to get the reference of this node. Na? Yes or no? So I require node reference. I require this node reference in both WD do init method as well as what? On action event of the button. Na? So what I'll do, instead of doing that multiple times, I have to get the reference only once. I have to reuse it across the methods of the same view. Na? So what I'll do, I'll go to what? View attributes. What is that? Context underscore what? T 00, any name. T00 underscore node. What is the reference? If underscore WD underscore what? Context underscore what? If underscore WD underscore context underscore node. Okay, let us save it. Check with the syntax, no errors. Okay, done. So let us write the logic in what? First in what? WD doing method. What is the first thing here? Get the what? Get the country keys. So tell me, how do you proceed? I have to get all the 200 and what? I have to get all the 205 country keys or 235 country keys from this table and put it in the internal table. Na? So I require what? Internal table. So tell me the code. Data what? T underscore what? T underscore T 005. Type what? Type what? Type table of T005. Huh? Nine. That's why I said practice. This is not recommended now. Not recommended. Last class I covered this. What I have to do? Data, data type on behalf of every node. What gets created? One internal table and one work area. Where it gets created? In the local interface. What is the object of the local interface? W underscore what? This. So what I have to do? Type W underscore this of what? Elements underscore what? T005 underscore. Yes or no? In the local view interface, see, I am having what? One. Where is that? Yeah, you can say elements underscore what? Node name, and this is what? Element underscore so and so. This is work area, and this is what? Internal table. So I am referring to what? Internal table. So now select what? What is the field? Land one from what? T005 into table what? T underscore 0 T005. That's all. I want all the records now. That's all. Then if what? Size of ours is equal to 0, what I have to do? I have to display this internal table data. I have to display this internal table data in the item list box, no? Which is binded with what node? Binded with what node? T005 underscore node. So I have to get the reference of this now. So in order to bind, what I have to do? First step is what? Yes, get the reference of the node. What is the node name? T00 what? 5 underscore what? Node. So get the reference here. I'll go to pattern, above objects pattern. Yes. What is the root? WD context. What is the interface? Context node. What is the method? Get child node. Get child node. Done. Name. What is the name? T005 underscore what? Node. What is the reference? What is the reference? What is the global reference I declared? Context underscore T005 underscore node. On every attribute you create, one declaration gets generated in the local interface, right? If you double click on this, check it. Is it available at the last? Yes, it is available now. So how do you access the components of interface by using what? Object. So what you have to say here? WD underscore this of what? Context underscore T what? 005 underscore what? No. That's all now. Right? So next step is what? What is the next step? If WD underscore this of what? context underscore T005 underscore node is what? Bound. If it is bound, what I have to do? Bind what? Bind what? Country keys. So again I'll say, already we know the method. What is the method? Bind table. Bind underscore what? Table. Okay, what is the internal table? T underscore T005. That's all. End if and again what? End if. I don't require another end if, I think. Only two end ifs, save it. Check it, done, no errors. Right, so if I use pretty printer, you'll understand better. Done. So when I execute this, I got all the country keys. I got all the country keys. Okay. Any questions in this logic, please ask me. Main thing is not the program logic here. This one. Why I declare this is globally? Because I have to get the reference of this T005 node in the wdint method, as well as when I click on the button to identify the selected keys, again I have to get the reference of the node now. So to avoid that redundancy, I declare it as what? View attribute. For every view attribute you declare, a corresponding declaration will be available in what? Local interface. That's why to access the declaration you have to prefix it what? Object. So that's what I have done here. Any questions? Please ask. Amar, Venkatesh, Rambabu, Sriram, Amit, Ashok. Any questions? Shafi is absent and Chandramoli is absent. Lots. Okay. Now, if you see this requirement here, just observe. I got the country keys. I'll select what? AG. I'll hold the control key. I'm unable to select what? I'm unable to select multiple country keys. So what I'll do in the view level, okay, in the layout tab, if you go to what? Layout tab, for the item list box you can see, let me go to item list box, right? For the item list box, okay, so observe here for the item list box, there's a property here. What is this? Multiple selection. Select the checkbox. Am I clear? So that the user can select what? Multiple items. So I'm selecting multiple selection as what? So selected. So when I execute now, I'll select AF. I'm holding the control key. Yes, I'm able to select what? Multiple country keys. That's it. So what are the three important properties for the list box? Data source property. What else? Multiple selection. And what is the other property? Text property. Text property you have to bind with what? The node. I have to bind with what? Attribute node. What is the attribute there? Land one. What is the node there? T005 underscore. Any questions? Please ask. Right. If there are no questions, what is the next requirement now? When I click on the button, what is the event triggered? On action. I have to identify what? I have to identify what? Multiple selected rows. So last week we have seen the scenario to identify the single selected row on the table. How to identify the single selected row? Get static attributes method. We have to use a method called as what, get static attribute. So here first let me go to that on action event of the button. Yeah, first of all, what you have to do, we have to get the, to identify the selected rows, you have to get the reference of the node, but I did not get that reference because already declared this reference as what, view attribute. The lifetime of this view attribute is what, throughout the view. So what I'll do directly here in the on action event of the button, yeah, here, if also what, if wd underscore this of what, yes, context underscore t 005 underscore node is what bound. If it is bound, what I have to do, what I have to do, identify the what, identify the selected elements, identify the selected. If it is a single element, what is the method we are using? If you go to that interface, what is that interface? If underscore wd underscore what, context node. To identify the single selected element, so far we are using a method called as what, get underscore what, static underscore what, attributes. This is a method we are using to identify the single selected element. Now we need to identify what, multiple selected elements. So for this we have to use a method called as get underscore selected underscore what, elements. Get selected elements. What is this method? Instance returns all the selected elements. So I need to call this particular method. What is this method? Instance method. How do we access instance method? By using what, object. Anyway, we have the object already now. If you go to that, already we are having the object, this one, this object. Okay, so using that object I have to call that method. Before calling the method, you have to check the signature now. See the signature of this method, what it is doing, it is returning some including lead selection, which is optional. It is also returning me what, it is also returning me what, wdr underscore context underscore element underscore set. So now how do you proceed? Can anyone tell me how do you proceed? I want the approach. So simple rule, to identify the single selected row, we have to use what method, get static attributes, which will return me the row of the selected, which will return the content of the selected row. To identify the multiple selected elements, the method you have to use what, get selected elements. This method is having one returning parameter, which is returning what, so and so. So how do we approach now? Anyone?
Okay, to hold that return values, we need to have one in the table type that reference to this one.
Good. Okay.
We can call
Yeah. Yeah. We
call that
need,
internal table. Yeah.
correct. We need to check what type of parameter it is. By looking at this, I cannot say whether it is integer, character, float, work area, internal, what it is, I don't know. Okay. So I need to double click and check what exactly this represents. What it is returning. See, if it's set means what? Nothing but what? Collection. When I double click on this, when I double click on WDR context element set, what it is returning? Table type. So can I call this parameter as an internal table? Yes. So it is returning me internal table of type what? WDR context element set. So let me declare the internal table. Right? Internal table. What does that internal table contains? If I double click on this, if I double click on this table type is associated with a reference type. What is this? if underscore wd underscore context underscore what element, if underscore wd underscore context underscore element. So what I'll do is, since it is a table type, I need to loop it now. So I'll declare a work area also. I'll say wa underscore what element, what like what line of what t underscore what element. Understood? I declare internal work area. I'll use a pattern. Yeah, what is the reference of that node? wd underscore this of what context underscore what t005 underscore node. What is the method name? Just now we have seen get selected elements, get underscore select underscore elements. Done. Continue. Yes, exporting is optional here. Receiving set is equal to what, equal to what t underscore what elements. Done. Okay, next, what is the next approach? So I came to know that to identify the list of selected elements, I must use which method? Get underscore select underscore elements. Blindly we cannot call the method now, you have to check the signature. What is the signature of this method? It is returning me a table type, nothing but what? It is returning me what? An internal table. So to receive that internal table, I declared a local internal table of type so and so. Done. Now what is the next approach? What is the next approach? What is the next approach? What it is, see, earlier to identify the single selected row, what is the method I used? Get static attribute. What that method will do? It will return me the content of what selected row. But here this internal table will not contain the content of the selected rows. It will contain, each line of this internal table contain a reference of which interface? If underscore wd underscore context underscore what element. I repeat once again. In the last week, to identify the single selected value, we are using a method what? Get static attributes, which is returning me what? Content of the selected row. But this method, it is not returning me the content, it is returning me the internal table containing the references of what? Selected element. So that's why what I'll do is, see the technique here. If what t underscore what elements is what not initial, do so and so, else I have to give a message na? What is that message? Message to select what? Message to select at least what? One country key. Message to select at least one country key. Done. So now I'll say loop at what? T underscore what? T underscore elements into what? W underscore what? Elements, and then what? End loop. Okay, so see, I can write this code in 2 minutes. Okay, but thing is, we should know the approach. That's the reason I'm writing it very slowly. Now let me put the breakpoint here. Okay, I'll put the breakpoint in this method directly. Done. When I execute now, done. Okay, so I'll select AF. I'll hold the control key. I'll select AM and I'll select what? AR. AF, AM, and what? AR. When I click on this, yes, it is stopping there. It is going to what? Debugging mode. So if you see the reference here, reference is still available now, because I declared this as what? View attribute. What is the lifetime of this attribute? Throughout the view. Okay, so reference is available now. Done. Now I am trying to call which method? Yes, which method I'm trying to call? Get underscore selected underscore what elements. What does it do? It returns the internal table containing the list of what? Selected items. It returns with the internal table containing the what? References of what? Selected elements. So if you see T underscore elements, what it is showing as of now? Yes. What? 0. How many entries are selected? 3 entries. What are they? AM, AF and AR. Okay. Now when I call this method, when I say F6, yes, good. How many entries I got? 3 entries. Let me check whether this internal table contains the data or does it contain anything else. When double click on this, what this TNS elements contains? It contains the references of what? That particular interface. But already we know it will not return with the object of what? Interface. It will return with the object of what? Class. So by looking at this, it is clearly understood that it is not returning with the data. It is returning with the references of what? Selected elements. It is returning with the references of what? Selected element. So now tell me, how do you proceed further? This table type is the reference of this interface. How do you proceed further? Yeah, Rambabu, how do you proceed? When I loop it, each reference will come to what? Work area. Then how do you proceed? What is our agenda? Agenda is what? For the selected country keys, I have to check, I have to get the customers. To get the customers, I have to get the content. I have to get the content of what? Selected rows. But this method is not returning me what? Content of what? Selected rows. What it is returning? It is returning me the references of what? Selected rows. Understood? Returning the references. It is not directly returning the values. So how do we approach? Oh, good, correct. Oh, yeah. Each reference is what type here? IF underscore W underscore context underscore element. This interface might contain some methods. You have to call the appropriate method to read the content. So if I double click on this interface now, see, this interface contains one method what? Get static attribute. What it will do? Returns the content of the selected row. So call this method inside what? Work area. What this method will do? It returns with the work area of our type. Okay, so now what I have to do here? Here, this the main focus should be what? This is not having the data of what? Selected row. It is having what? Addresses of what? Selected row. It is having the references of what? Selected row. Each reference is what type? Each reference is what type? What interface? If underscore wd underscore context underscore what? Element. Now extract the what? Content of what? Selected rows. Here identify the what? References of what? Selected element. So when I read the content of each row is nothing but a work area. So I may select one row or I may select what? Multiple rows. All those selected rows I have to put it in one temporary internal table. So what I will do here? Here I will say data. Try to understand. Temp underscore what? T 005 underscore node. Type what? W underscore what? This of what? Elements underscore T 005 underscore what? Note. Okay. Type W underscore this elements underscore T underscore note. Then W underscore T 005 underscore note. Type what? What is this? Element. Element underscore so and so. Now you read the content. So what is the work area name? W underscore what? Element. So see the technique here. W underscore what? Element. What is the interface reference? Context underscore what? Element. Each interface is what type here? If W what? Context element. In this interface only, what is the method I have to call? Get static attribute. So here I'll say browsers get static attributes. Where is it? That. So now I'll get the work area. What is the work area name? W underscore what? T005 underscore what? Node. Then what I'll do? Append. Append what? W underscore T005 underscore node to what is the internal table? Yes. Temp underscore T005 underscore what? No. I'll debug once again. Please focus. I'll put the breakpoint here. Right. I'll select AF, AM, and AR. AF, AM, and what? AR. Three elements. I'll click on this. Done. So it is going to the debugging mode. Yeah. If you see this will not contain the actual. This method will not return what? Actual content. It returns the references of our selected rows. So when I say F6, how many references I got? Three references. See the references. Three references. Done. Then I'm looping each reference. Each reference I'll get into what? Work area. W underscore what? Element. Did I got the reference here? Yes, I got the reference of what? One of the element. Now by using this reference, what is the method I'm calling? Get static attributes. First I'm putting in the work area. From work area we are appending it to what? Internal table. So when I say F5, yeah, see this. When I say F6, what is the value I got? Yes, AF. That AF I'm appending it to what? Internal table. So I got AF here. See this? It has gone outside. Right, so I got all the three values. Any questions here? Please ask me. This will not return the content, this will return only the references. You have to loop that reference internal table. Inside the loop, you try to call them with what? Get static attributes. And each row is nothing but a work area. From work area, I am appending it to a temporary internal table. What is the next topic? Next logic. If what? Temp underscore what? T005 underscore what? Node is what? Is what? Not initial. What I have to do? I have to get the customers for that selected country keys, no? Right? So I require an internal table based on what? Customers. So what I have to do? Get customers for what? What? Selected what? Country keys. So data. Yes, tell me T underscore what? KN1 type what? Type what? WD underscore this. On behalf of every context node, one internal table and work area gets created now. So type what? What is that? WD underscore what? What? Sorry, already declared. Elements underscore what? KN1 underscore what? No. That's all. Huh? Then select name1 and what? ORT01. From where? KN1 into what? Table what? T underscore what? KNA1. Right? For all what? For all what? Entries in what? What is that internal table? This all, na? For all entries in what? Temp underscore T005 underscore node. Where? Where what? Land 1 is equal to what? Hyphen what? Land. That's all, na? Then what? If what? Size of r is equal to 0. Where is the customer data now? T underscore what? K never. T underscore KNA1. So what I have to do now? Before binding, I have to bind the data to a table. I have to get the reference now. So what is that? Get the reference of what? Get the reference of what? KNA1 underscore what? Node. So I'll say data what? Context underscore what? KNA1 underscore node type ref2. What is the interface? If underscore wd underscore what? Context underscore what? Node. Let me get the reference. So it is also under root only. Na? So what is the root object? wd underscore what? Context. wd underscore context. This is the interface. If underscore wd underscore context. What is the method? Get child node. Get child node. Done. What happened? Once again, it is taking some time. wd underscore context interface is what? If wd context node and the method name is what? Get underscore child node. I think it got stuck. I'll go back to SC80. 8 na? Yeah, a non-action event here. We are appending. Next what? Here only. I not saved it. What is that? If temp underscore what? T005 underscore node is what? Not initial. What I have to do? Get what? Get customers data. I require what? Internal tables. Also data what? T underscore K1 type W underscore this of what? Elements underscore what? K1 underscore node. Then I'll say here select what? Select customer number. What else? Select customer number name one ORT 01 from K1 into table. What is the internal table? Into table T underscore KN1 for all entries in what is that temp underscore T005 underscore note where what land 1 is equal to what where land 1 equal to what sorry uh, temp underscore T005 underscore note that's all na? Okay T005 underscore 999 one second what I declared here let me check yeah temp only na okay or else why node here I'll just say just to avoid confusion here also where temp underscore what t 05 for all entries in so and so hyphen what land. That's all. Okay. Then what if the country if the customers are available, you have to bind it with the table na? So to bind it with the table, I require reference of what, the second node. Get the what, a reference of which node? Get the reference of what, kn1 underscore node. So data, I don't require this kn1 node reference in other place na? So I'll declare it only here, context underscore kn1 underscore node type ref2 if underscore w underscore context underscore node. I'll use the pattern. Done. Then it is under root only, wd underscore what, context. If wd context element get child node, get child node, right? So here what is the name of the node? Actually you also didn't tell me. W underscore this of what, w underscore context underscore what, yes, k number underscore, don't hard code what, node name. So context underscore what, yes, what is this, k1 underscore node. Done. Next what, if context underscore kn1 underscore node is what, bound, what I have to do, I have to bind what, customer data. So here I'll say bind customer data. So context underscore kn1 underscore node of what, bind underscore what, table. What is the internal table? T underscore what, kna what. And if else what, no what, customers. Let's say no customers. Done. And if, one second, yeah, if the data is available, done. Then if it is not initial, yeah, if it is not initial, then do that. So close one more if here. Where is that? For all entries in what, temp underscore t05. So simple logic, it's very self-explanatory. So whenever I click on the button, what is the event triggered? On action event. So in the on action event, what I'm doing, any of you have one global reference for that node na? Right? If it is bound, if the object is still available, I have to identify the references of what, selected element. So for that, what you have to do, using that node reference, I am calling which method, get selected elements. What this method will do, it will not return the content of what, selected rows. It will return only the references of what, selected rows in the form of table type, nothing but in the form of internal table. So we are receiving that in particular internal table, and we are looping that particular internal table. Inside this loop, what you have to do, you have to get the content of what, each selected row. So when you loop, what happens, each reference will come to what, work area. Using that work area, I am calling which method, get static attributes, which will return me the actual content. That actual content I am putting in what, work area, and from work area we are appending it to what, temporary internal table. So once you get the content of the all the rows, what I'm doing, if the temporary internal is not empty, I'm getting the customer data. From which table? From kn1 table. If the customer's data is available, we are getting the reference of the node and we are binding that. That's all. Yes, we are binding. And here also better, don't what, hard code the node name. How do we do it? wd underscore this of what, on behalf of every context node, you'll get this attribute na, wd underscore what, underscore yeah, w underscore ctx underscore what node name underscore what node name, is it correct? No, no. wctx no underscore boss, no underscore. Done. So I'll put the breakpoint here, just observe here, not here. I'll put the breakpoint in the on action event of the button. Yeah, when I execute this, I'll not select anything. I'll directly click on the button. Right, I'm not selecting anything. So when I click on the button, right, so if it is initial, yes. If it is bound, yes, it is bound only. Now what I'm doing, using that reference, we are trying to get the reference of what? We are trying to get the reference of what? Selected element. So it will return the internal table now. As of now, internal is having what? Zero entries. Now also I should have what? Zero entries, because I have not selected any what? Elements. I have not selected any elements. So when I say F6, done, still it is what? Zero. Understood? Because I have not selected any element. So if t underscore elements is not initial, do one. So else what I have to do? I have to write the message to select what? At least what? One this thing. Done. Nothing will happen. I'll select AF, AM and what? AO. AF, AM and what? AO. I'll click on this. Yeah, it is going there. Done. So it is anyhow is bound. Done. And this internal level, if you see, as of it is what? Zero. When I say F6, how many entries I got? Three entries. Check that entries. Yes, I got the references. Now to extract the content, na, so if it is not initial, I am looping it. Yeah, inside that loop, what is the first one I selected? AF. Okay, so if you see this one, these are only references. Now I am trying to get the value. Okay, so see here, when I say F6, what is that I got? AF. So from work area, I'm appending it to what? Temporary internal table. So I got one entry. So if you see here, I got one entry. Like this, when I call that methods, how many entries? AF and what? AF and what? AM. Done. Then again, I'm F6. I got one more entry now. A3. So if you see this, AF, AM and what? AO. Done. There are no further entries. Done. If it is not initial, yes. We are trying to get the rate into what? T underscore K1. How many entries are there? Zero. So when I say F6, what happened? Yes. How many entries I got? Oh, still what? Zero. Might be there are no customers with that countries. Okay, done, 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 done. So if it is failed, so that I have to give the message. So what I have to do now? Let me remove the breakpoint. Let me write the further condition. One second. So if size of RC is equal to what? Zero. Where is that? Yeah, if size of RC equal to zero. Here message what? No customers. Then else select at least one country. Done. Save it. Check it. Activate this. Okay. So let me go and check the table. Which table we have to check? KN1 table. I'll check in what? KN1 table. First of all, to check whether any customers are available or not. I'll go to the contents. Do you have any customers first of all? Yes, 8,500. What is the tiger? AF? AF has got zero entries. What else? AM also has what? Zero entries. What else? AO also has what? Zero entries. But what customers are having the data? So I'm displaying the first 200 records. Hmm. Acha, see here, US is there, Germany is there, etc. is there. Okay, so let me go there. Let me try to exit once again. Test it. Right, so I'll just scroll down. I'll select Australia. Okay, I'll select Australia and what else? What? Germany. I'll select Great Britain also. Okay, Australia, AU, Australia. What else? Germany and not Great Britain. Get customers. What happened? I clicked on the button. Might be there are too many customers. Let me check. I'll go back. What I give? Australia. How many entries? 16 entries. What else? Germany. 2,700. What else? Great Britain. Oh, 1,000. That's why I think it's taking some time. Yeah, I got the data now. Right, so I got the data. Is it clear? These are all the data. See overall what is the count here? How much? 39 what? 58. So is it valid? How much? 1,165 plus 2,777. How much? 3,900 change. Right? 3,900 change plus what? 16. Okay, so that's what the count I give. Yes, that's all. 3,950. That's all. Okay. If I select only, I'll select only Australia. Where is that? AUA. I'll select only Australia. I'll click on this. Yes, how many records I got? What is that? Only what? 16 entries. Done. Working fine. Okay, so here output is not important. The overall thing you have to understand from this program is what are the important properties for what? List box. What are the properties? Data source property, text property, text property. Okay, and to enable multiple selection, I have to select the checkbox now, multiple selection. And how to identify the selected multiple selected elements? We have to call the method what? Get selected elements, which will not return the content of the selected elements, which will return what? References of what? Selected elements. We have to loop that reference internal table. Inside that loop, by using each reference, we have to call which method? Get static attributes. That method will return what? Content of the selected row, append it to what? Internal table, and then do it. Clear? Any questions, please ask. Clear? So if you have time, you try this. Please try it. Otherwise, uh, will not get the concept. So you try this. What is my requirement is I should have a view. We should have what? Group by what? We should have what? List of what? Radio buttons. Okay. So it's not a single radio button. It is a radio button group by what? index. If you go to the view level here, see, observe this. If you go to the layout, yeah, if you go to the layout, at the layout level, you take a property called as, sorry, you take a UI element called as not radio button, not radio button. If you select radio button, only one radio button will be created. You have to go for what? Radio button group by what? Index. There is a UI element called as what? Radio button group by index. So, see here. I gave the context also, you should be able to understand. What is that? I should have a group of what? Radio buttons. Okay, I have to bind. What is the property I gave here? Text property. Understood? So for radio button group by index, what is the important property? Text property. Bind with what? Attribute of a node. Attribute of a node. So my requirement is what? In the runtime, I'll select a radio button. Okay. So we should know what is the event triggered whenever I select a radio button. If it is a selection screen in a app, what is the event triggered? At selection screen on radio button group. If it is a module pool, it is PAI. Now this is a Webdynpro view. If you select a radio button in the radio button group, SAP will trigger an event called as on select event. On select event. Suppose here I'll select radio button group by what? Index. As it created, it will create what? Radio button group by index. Okay, so for this radio button group by index, what is the property you have to set? Yes, what is the property? Text property. You have to bind with what? Attribute of a node. Okay, and if you scroll down, what is the only event available? On select. So you try to get exposed to different events. Already, what are the events you have seen? On action for what? Button. On enter for what? Input field. On lead select for what? Table. Yes or no? On lead select for what? Table. For radio button group by index, what is the event? On select. So what you have to understand, whenever I select a radio button on the radio button group, what is the event selected? What is the event triggered? On select. So what you have to do? What, suppose if I select the third radio button, assume what is the text of the third radio button? Cross apps. So here I have to say selected item is what? Cross apps. If I select core app, selected item is what? Core app. So here, what is the validation here? By default, second radio button in the group should be what? Selected, and the corresponding radio button text should be defaulted as part of what? Text view UI element. In the runtime, depending on the selected radio button, the corresponding radio button text should be displayed as part of what? Text view UI element. So try to do this, take your time, try to do that. Whatever you have discussed so far, the same approach. Am I clear? See, why I am giving this exercise is, it is not possible to cover what? All these UI elements. If you cover the UI element, this itself will take 2 3 months. Am I clear? So don't try to understand each and every UI element. Try to get used to how to work with what? UI element. So that whenever you get any requirement, we should able to do Google. You'll get the code. You should understand how to what? Copy that code and make the changes. So that's what we are learning here. Am I clear? So try to do this in exercise, so that tomorrow I'll start with a new concept. So far we have seen only what? Controls programming, how to work with the control and how to implement the events. Okay. Tomorrow onwards we'll see how to include one component inside another component, how to navigate from one component to another component, how to exchange data from what? One component to another component, how to enhance the standard components, all those things. So the actual Webdynpro, I'll start from what? Tomorrow onwards. This is also Webdynpro only, but these are all the base. For any of the requirement, these are all what? Base. So try to do that. Any doubts, please ask me. I have not shared that last class recording. Okay, so I'll share that last class recording and even this recording also. If I'm able to convert, I'll share it. Just refer to that and try to do that exercise. Okay, plus please do not expect recording for each and everything. I'll try to share max of them. Okay, So as a preview, so just refer to that. Whenever I share, I'll drop the mail. Okay, so just what preview it from the Google Drive and try to practice. Done. But today I'll definitely share the last class recording, because last class we understood about what dynamic references. Okay, so that I'll share this, because this conversion takes around 3 to 4 hours. I may not be able to share today's recording, but last class recording I'll share. Done. So any doubts? Done. Chalo then. So I'm winding off. We'll continue tomorrow.